We're so done with new year, new you. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that asks you what you want to be when you grow up so you can graduate into retirement with a purpose and a passion. I'm your host and valedictorian, Eric Brotman, and after nearly 200 episodes and a year-long hiatus, Don't Retire, Graduate is back for Season 6. We'll be bringing you interviews and amazing guests every other Thursday. And on alternating weeks, we're hosting a new segment called Diary of a Financial Advisor, which we know you'll all enjoy. So please subscribe, check out our new episodes every Thursday. Today, to kick off Season 6, I am incredibly pleased and in fact honored to be joined by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe's the creator and co-host of the Stacking Benjamins and Stacking Adventures podcasts. He's the creator of a network of 5 podcasts and a monthly contributor to at least one more. He's a current board member at large of the Plutus Foundation, a former board president of Partnership for the Pathway. He's a former financial advisor. He's a reformed financial advisor after 16 years, represented American Express and Ameriprise in the media. He was called the Money Man on Detroit television, WXYZ TV, appeared twice weekly there. He's appeared in Bride magazine, which I'm definitely going to ask him about, as well as Best Life and Child magazines, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Detroit News, and our Baltimore Sun. He's also appeared online in more than 200 different places, including CNBC and WallStreetJournal.com. Joe, thanks for being our first guest. Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate.
Oh, man, so good to be here. And I love how you get to call yourself the valedictorian. By the way, can we just call that out right now?
This is as close as it's ever come.
Valedictorian, really? Don't get me wrong. You're a smart dude. But I thought, who gets to bestow that title? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I once was told that C's get degrees, and that was all I had to hear. So I was good on that front. I want you to know I searched high and low for a picture of you in Bride magazine and could not find it. So if you have that, we'll share it in the show notes. Nothing would give me more pleasure. Tell us what you've been working on. You're one of the busiest humans I know. You're involved in so many different things and making a difference in financial literacy and in the podverse and in financial planning. What you been up to, Joe?
Well, thanks, brother. I'm just trying to keep up with you. Actually, we've been doing some fun stuff. I have begun creating a series of guides. Ultimately, there's going to be 5, but we started off talking about your workplace benefits. And our first guide is called Read This Before Choosing Your Workplace Benefits. And what I like about it, Eric, and you know this and I know this, is that so many people think you got to get esoteric with your investment choices, that you got to use all these funky, weird, wild things. And I feel like that's just people getting bored, people thinking, oh, there's got to be something better. And you know what? You can find, as you know, at most workplaces, especially with major companies, you can find most of what you're looking for right there. And it's good to dig into those anyway, because also, as you know, sometimes your disability coverage isn't what you think it is. And you got to make a life insurance decision if you've got kids or if you're worried about what happens when you pass away, which I think we all should be. And then there's some surprising things, like maybe we can get a discounted Costco membership. Maybe we can get a gym membership that is either free or discounted through our workplace benefits. There's just so much in there that we thought, okay, we're going to make a guide on that first. And over the course of the next 2 years, we'll be releasing 4 more for a total of 5.
That's amazing. First of all, nobody brags about their workplace benefits. And it's so important. I mean, everybody wants to brag at the water cooler about the hot stock pick or something that happened, or their bet on FanDuel or whatever in the hell it was. But in terms of the workplace benefits, these are foundational blocking and tackling type things, and people misuse them. At BFG, we've been doing financial wellness programs for companies, for nonprofits, and people are not naming beneficiaries properly. They're not signing up for the right things. You're right about the investment choices. They're choosing things based upon, rear view mirror. Oh, this one did well last year. It must be the right thing for me. And getting advice from the guy or gal in the next cubicle is probably not the best way to do it. And yet that's how so many do. So I think it's a great first step. Is that guide something you're going to be putting out on social? Is that going to be on Amazon? Is that something part of your show, or what? How you structuring that?
No, people can go to stackingbenjamins.com/benefits to look at it. We do charge a fee for it. The cool thing is we update it every month and make it better every month. And we also, so it's a continuous improvement plan. You pay for it once, you have it forever. Average person changes jobs every 3.4 years. Your company's going to mess with your benefits roughly once every 5 years. And you know what? If your company doesn't mess with it, you stay with the same company. Heck, there was no such thing as an HSA or a Roth 401k when I started in the working world. The government's going to change things. We're going to consistently update this guide so that as long as we have it, you just go back in and get the most updated copy and bam, you're there.
Now, you also wrote a book with Emily Guy Birkin some time ago that, first of all, I read and loved. It's as funny as you are. So clearly, Emily had something to do with the writing. How's the book doing? Is that getting some traction? Are you getting a lot out of that at this point?
It's funny, like anything, it slows down and you see some of the new books come out and you're like, my book was better than that, and you go, come on, let's bring this thing back. But very seriously, mostly as I do the speaking circuit, is when we see book sales quite a bit. So that's, it's a little disappointing, but that's what happens in books. I'm a guy like you that interviews authors, right? And so there's the hot new thing. I remember when Stacked was 4 months old, CNN hadn't yet called it the best business book of 2023. There was none of that. And this bookstore told me I couldn't come because the book was too old. It was 4 months old, dude. And they told me, wow. No, you can't come talk about the book because it's 4 months old. We got to talk about the new stuff. That's somebody that's way too cult to the new for me. Because what's funny also is that when you look at the bestseller list of the best books, especially when it comes to finance, these are books that have endured the test of time, right? Books that, like Dr. Tom Stanley and The Millionaire Next Door, like that book. When did that book come out? 94, 95 maybe? And that book is still as relevant today. And he and his daughter made a sequel to it, but the original one still has legs.
I'm looking forward to the sequel for Stacked. Call it double stacked or something. I can picture more stacked again, something. I can see the sequel. And if you can do it in 3D, sequels in 3D always do better than sequels when they're in 2-dimensional.
They have to, like Jaws 3D. What a classic.
Correct. It's like a pop-up book is what I'm picturing. I'm picturing something, you open it up and it jumps out at you and stuff.
Hey-o.
Well, why not? So a lot has happened in the world as we record this here, starting 2025. A lot has happened in the world. There was an election a couple months ago. There didn't get much news or press coverage.
I hadn't heard about that.
Nobody knew it was happening, but it because of the election results, and I am definitely not going political with you or anybody else on this show ever. However, it did change what some of the prognostication is around tax policy, around the economy, around interest rates, around other things. Do you find that some of the messaging that you're running into with the stackers is now a little bit deviated from where it was maybe in October when it looked like we might have a different result?
Well, our messaging is the same because, frankly, you're going to play the same game no matter who's in office. And one of my favorite quotes, Eric, and we don't do politics on Stacking Benjamins either, because, we're about personal accountability, and it is what it is. And you do what you need to do based on the current facts, the way that we have them right now. And here's the way that I see it. I love this quote from Jack Welch, the guy that ran GE during the 90s. Accept reality the way it is, not the way you wish it were or hope it to be. Right. And on one end, I'm seeing the personally, I don't understand why anybody's a fanboy of any politician. And I feel like we've turned it into a football game. I got to be a Trump supporter, or I got to be a, Biden supporter, Harris supporter, whatever. Why am I a supporter of anything but good ideas? But on one end, I've got the quote Trump supporters who are like, oh, eggs are going to be down to $1. Gasoline's going down to $1.50. Gasoline's not coming back to $1.55. Eggs are not going to be $1 again. This guy is going to be president. He's not going to be king of Kroger or of the gas pump, right? So that's not happening. And on the other side, what we're seeing is Trump's president. The sky is falling. The world's going to hell. I got to move out of the country. That also isn't going to happen. None of this stuff is good. Now, are we going to see, heck, as we record this, we will definitely see some waves. The day before we record this, the stock market had its biggest, point drop since 1973. And so I think that we definitely will see some waves as we see a new administration and new ideas. But those waves also bring opportunities. And if we look over long periods of time, what we see is that the market goes down, the market goes up, politicians come, politicians go, and you just continue to move. Now, the thing I think we need to look at more is really what the Federal Reserve is doing than what the president's doing, frankly, because we kind of go the way of the Federal Reserve over the short term anyway.
Well, and the Fed showed their cards yesterday, and I know this is not, we're releasing this in early January, and we're having this discussion right before Christmas, so that's a little unfair. However, they showed their cards, and it did spook the markets a little bit. And like you, I feel like these things ebb and flow over time. And no sooner will Trump be back in office in January later this month than they'll be talking about on the news the midterm elections in 2 years. Like, let's start that again, because it's been a hot minute since we've had election ads on. But I do think that this could affect some of the planning that was being done around, for example, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. There was this talk that was going to sunset, and now none of us know. And how does that affect the state taxation? And how does it affect legal planning? And how does it affect the difference between how blue states and red states, candidly, higher or lower tax states, how they handle federal taxes? I think there are some things that now feel cloudy.
I think and I think that part of this game of investing is you have to be comfortable playing it in fog, right? You just have to become comfortable, because the fog isn't going to go away. Sometimes we get a longer term view, maybe we can look out 4, 6, 8 weeks and think we have some level of certainty of what might happen if no news happens, which news happens all the time that surprises us. But let's just look at this from really what you do and the planning perspective, because I really like the way that you guys, good financial planners, look at this, which is, let's just walk down the strategy avenue of which way of playing this is best. We know the stock market at some point is going to go down. We don't know when, we don't know how. Nobody knew yesterday as we record this, to your point, and we don't know what's going to happen between now and the time this releases. But we don't know when the stock market is going to go down. We don't know how far it's going to go down, but we do know it will go down, right? And then the second thing that we know is that over time, for the economy continue, it has to over long periods of time go up for the economy continue. Companies have to make money. A reflection of them making money is the stock market. It's not voodoo. It's not magic. It is a reflection of the economy as a whole. So I have two choices. Choice number one is I'm going to wait till the smoke clears. How many times have you heard this over your career? I'm going to wait till smoke clears. Yeah, I'm going to put my money on the sideline, wait till the smoke clears, and then things are going to, then I'll put my money in. When you think the smoke is cleared, when the market reaches all-time highs again, and it's actually the most dangerous time to invest is when you think you've got clarity, versus a time like yesterday. I've got a friend, I wrote to him, and I said, hey, look at, Trump's putting pressure on the Republicans, and we get the Fed in the same day. So we get this huge drop, right, in the stock market, these forces together. And you know what he said, Eric? He said, I put $60,000 in the market. He actually had a rollover IRA, so it was already in the market. But he's like, I had $60,000 that happened to be out until yesterday. He goes, this is great.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
if we take a long-term view, man, if I'm sitting here and it gets bumpy for a little while because of an administration change, and I don't need the money for 15, 20, 25, 30 years, this is heaven for me because I can shove more money in while the market's bumpy. That is phenomenal. Now, for somebody on the other end of that, if you're somebody who's taking money out, I think you just got to be like always, you have to have a careful withdrawal strategy, but that can be smartly navigated too by making sure you don't have your long-term money in a place where you have to, quote, wait for clarity, because that strategy has never won and it never will.
Yeah, the smoke never clears. I think Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire. I think this is literally, we're seeing that. You could write that song again for the 30 years that have passed since he did, and it would be the same noise, the same nonsense, because it really does continue in that way. So Joe, I get the sense that that people have to understand the difference between strategy and tactics, right? Strategy doesn't change over time. Strategic financial advice and financial planning and investment management and all the things that we do as a strategy really don't change a whole lot. They might change a little through our lifetime because of our time horizon, but the strategy itself doesn't change a lot. The tactics, though, sometimes feel important. And you were talking about the workplace benefits and people feeling like tactically they need to move their money around in their 401k, which I would argue they basically never need to do if it's just allocated. But how are we trying to teach people not to take tactical, too many tactical moves when the news du jour is every 7 minutes there's a new cycle? I mean, how do you suggest we do that? Because it's not easy.
Well, I think you got to consider the source, right? One of my most fun things to do is to watch CNBC. And when the next guest comes on, to guess what they're going to say ahead of time. They say, oh, Eric Brotman is a corporate bond fund manager, and he joins us now. Eric, what do you think about interest rates? Oh, I think interest rates can be favorable to bonds. I think things are going to change, and I really think bonds are the future, right? Oh, so-and-so manages gold. What do you think? I think gold is amazing. I think that while it's bumpy right now, that is going to clear up. It is so fun to do. So, whenever you have news, what are they looking for? Imagine, Eric, if you got in an elevator and your two choices were soar or plummet, right? I mean, that's what we get on a daily basis about the stock market. It soared today or it plummeted today. And certainly they're just trying to sell newspapers. So that's why I really think if you begin with the goal and you work backwards to choose where your money goes and then build what you professionals call an investment policy statement. What I love about an investment policy statement is that it gets rid of the news cycle culture. And instead, you build this machine and you talk ahead of time when you're not emotional, you're in a room with the television off, you're talking specifically about what am I going to do in the future with my money? And then if that's not working, instead of panicking or, making a change because you had a bad tuna fish sandwich and you're just not feeling it today, you will adjust the machine. And you do that, maybe once every 6 months or once every year instead. I love that approach because I can watch the news, I can listen to the news, I can feel the fear, but I can continue to stay on the path that we know historically over long periods of time is the best place to be.
My takeaway is not to eat tuna fish when the markets are open. I mean, I don't know if my takeaway from the show is I should stick with turkey and not go there.
Because then I'll sleep. I'll get that tryptophan and I'll just sleep through the second half of the market.
It makes total sense to me. So I want to ask you about some of the stuff you did earlier in your career. I really want to dig up some fun facts. And when you were the money man, did you have was there a cape involved? Was there a costume? Did you have some kind of mask?
Yeah. It's so disappointing, Eric. I didn't. And you ask them for the costume, but they wanted me to look, quote, professional, quote, and reliable. I don't know what that's all about
So this was a radio. This was definitely a radio show.
It was
definitely radio.
It was TV and it was twice a week. Yeah. I did a radio show too for Ameriprise, which was just absolutely horrible.
Live television's a lot of fun. live television is a rush. I mean, you talk about the soaring and the plummeting. There's no roller coaster on earth like a 3-minute segment on live TV, because you don't know what you're going to be asked. You don't know what you're about to say. And then it happens so fast, and it feels like it's 20 seconds, and you're like, "What just happened?" It's like a blackout.
I don't even remember what I said.
Right, yeah. It happens so fast. It's an amazing thing, and then the sound bites are forever. So you better have said something reasonably erudite, or you can.
Can I tell you my story of that when I started, Eric? Because I think you'll like this.
Absolutely.
So I get this call from a PR agency that American Express had hired. And they said, hey, the local news station, Channel 7, the number one news in Detroit, they want you to come on and do a segment for a week. And if it goes well, then we're going to rotate different advisors. Well, they didn't tell me that at first. They just said, we want you to do this. And I had done a bunch of radio. Radio's fine because over the years, I've become good at controlling my voice, but controlling that look on your face when there's sheer and utter panic, I could not do that. So I said, no, I don't want to do TV. I said, no TV for me. And then they said, well, if you do really well, we're going to rotate advisors and have different advisors do this segment every week. And I'm like, oh, 1 week? This will be a good resume builder. I can do it. Yeah. I can fight the fear to do it. So I go to come on, and the night before I find out the dirty secret. And the dirty secret is the PR person and I wrote the segment and we give it to the TV station. Now they can edit it. They can change it, like what the talking points are going to be, the lower third, the full screen graphics, what points I want them to hit, the questions I want them to ask me. I write the whole thing. And so you can imagine, I walk in there with a ton of confidence as Joanne Purton in Detroit. All your Detroit listeners will know who Joanne is. Joanne's asking me these questions. I'm like, that's a smart question, Joanne. Well, no crap, because I wrote it, right? And it was it was so fun, and it was so easy. And I'm like, oh, I really want to do this now. This sounds really, really fun. And then American Express says, no, we're going to rotate. Well, the next day, my buddy Adam goes and he does the segment. At the end of the segment, Joanne leans forward and she goes, how is Joe? Is Joe okay? Because he's going to be here every week, not you, right? Like on live TV.
Wow.
She tells him she wants me back. And so the producer calls and goes, what happened? And the PR person goes, well, no, we were going to switch out. And they're like, no, we're local news. They want the same person every week. We really like that first guy. I don't know why, but they really like that first guy. So we want Joe back. And then that lasted 9 years.
That's amazing. And poor Adam, he's still in therapy. I mean, that's a really hard thing. I mean, it's like being the wingman for your friend when you're a teenager. It's like, where's the really handsome guy? I wanted to talk to him.
It's like I want to date your sister, not you. For all the women out there. Yes.
Yeah. No. Thanks for doing that. Now we have a plummeting listenership. We want to soar, Joe. We want to soar.
That's right.
So yeah, live TV is a lot of fun, and you're right. You do write your segment, which actually is difficult because one of the things that PR agencies and others talk about so much is it's okay to have your message and almost say the same thing over and over again. But the TV producers don't want that. They want some nugget of recency, and so you run out of content. I wrote for Forbes.com for a long time, and I was in their retirement lane, and it's always about stay in your lane. And when I was writing for Forbes.com, I ran out of new things to say and didn't want to regurgitate. And so I eventually resigned and said, I've said everything I have to say. And what I've learned now is that it's okay to say the same thing over and over again in different ways because you're reaching different people each time. But that just felt strange to me. It felt foreign to me. And so sticking to your message, even when your message is boring, sometimes the advice you give is to do nothing. And then people think you're not doing anything. But sometimes that's the best advice is turn off the TV. Go have that tuna sandwich Joe was talking about, but don't leave the TV on. And that's a hard lesson to learn. Sometimes do nothing. What's it? Don't just do something, sit there. I mean, sometimes that's the message.
It's one of the only pursuits, as you know, is it as a human, it is the hardest thing to do because almost everything else is movement based. If we don't move, we accomplish nothing. We learn that from the time we're a kid. And yet, if we have the right allocation, we know markets are bumpy. we know that just sitting there historically has always been the right way to go. It's so hard to do this thing that is against every other thing we do. If I don't get off this chair today and eat, I will eventually die. Probably not today, probably not tomorrow. But at some point, I got to get up out of the chair and eat. I mean, even the little things like that. But with the stock market, if I got the right allocation, I don't move it for 10 years. I just did the right thing. Like, that's fantastic.
So what's next for Joe Saul-Sehy? What's the next? You told us about the five guides, which is very cool, and I love the first one. What's next for you? I know you're doing some travel stuff with Stacking Adventures. Tell us about that, because you went to Rome, right?
I have been all over the place, and my spouse and I, my wife, like me, I don't even know if that's a good sentence. We love what we do, Eric. I mean, we're blessed to be in a thing like you're in, where, you know, you and I have talked about this before. We work because we love the mission of what we're doing. But Cheryl is, she's in medicine, and she's like, I got about 10 years left in me. We've done a lot of travel over the years, and we decided to launch this travel blog called Stacking Adventures. And really chronicle our trips. And it is really fun. A couple days a week, we'll take a couple hours at night together, and we'll just work on our blogging. And then my friend Crystal and I, who I've podcasted with before, we decided to create a podcast end of that called Stacking Adventures. There's Crystal, for people watching the video there on the left. And Crystal and I have a blast talking about the trips that you can take and traveling the world, because I believe, like you believe, this is not about the money. Like, right. Finance isn't about the money. It's about what you can do. And one of the biggest problems I ever saw, and it continues year after year after year, is people that are good savers, people that listen to this type of a show, people that follow somebody like you. They will do great things saving money and be a good steward for their money. But then they get to those years when you really want to make sure that you get those wonderful experiences. And you know this, Eric, they have trouble doing it. They have trouble adventuring, because a good saver does not overnight become a good spender. And being a good spender and getting more out of life really is the key. So we have a lot of fun with our, it really is different than Stacking Benjamins, which is a good variety show. This is a community-based show. We will do a topic, like we just had one of our Stacker Adventures on Anne. Anne is not a PR person for Ireland. She hasn't written a book on Ireland. She's one of our listeners who just went to Ireland. So we have her tell her story. And then we have this phone line, stackingventures.com/mystory. And people have 5 minutes to tell their story. And about 6 weeks later, we do a second episode with anybody else that wants to call in and tell us their adventures. And we just play those, and we stop them partway, and we laugh about their stories. And so it's this sharing podcast about all the different cool adventures we've had as normal people, not as people. Certainly about once a month, we'll have a cool guest on that is an expert in travel. But the rest of the time, man, this is just a community show about us sharing what we messed up, what was fun, the serendipity that happens when you meet people that you didn't know that, you know, some of the wonderful things that happen when you go see the world.
I think your message is not only important, because people do build this nest egg and then they don't know what to do with it, and they're so afraid to lose it. It's really, there's a lot of head trash around money, and money itself, you don't take it with you. Money itself is just a number. It's what it can do for you, whether it's healthcare, whether it's travel and entertainment, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's kids and grandkids and great, whatever is important to you. And we've seen way too many people build significant wealth and then either die or get sick before they could enjoy most of it. And to me, that's tragic. I think if you can figure out a way to put away enough so that your long term is set, and then you can enjoy some along the way, don't wait till you're 73 to take the trip. I mean, just don't. If you're 37, go take the trip. You might not do it, Four Seasons Ritz-Carlton style, but go, because you'll get a chance to see some things.
We did a story just a couple weeks ago. I did not know this fact. Like, we know longevity, and we know that there's this great divide in America. People that can shop at the fruits and vegetables area, the fresh fruits area of the grocery store, those people are living longer and longer, right? And then there's other people that can't afford that. They're now living shorter lives. But what's interesting is, for all of us, I never knew this, Eric, the average healthy life expectancy, not when we're going to die, but when our health deteriorates to the point that life becomes less fun, that age is 66. 66.
Ooh.
So if we're waiting till 72 to take the trip, there's a good chance that your feet are going to have problems, your knees are going to have problems, your hips are going to have problems, you might have heart problems, whatever it is, your body is not going to cooperate. So this idea that we're going to live till our 80s or 90s, yeah, we will. But at 66, our body starts going, I think I got to do something different than what's in the plan. So I love your idea of not waiting. But let me tell you how small this is, because I'm going to brag about you for a minute, because I tell this story to everybody. It's not about huge amounts of money. Eric, you and your daughter had this thing that I did, maybe or that I saw, that maybe you still do it. But I know people that, I've been at the Lego store at Disney Springs, and I see these things and I'm like, oh my goodness, these are expensive. I'm not going to buy that. But in the big scheme of things, they're not, right? You bought this huge Lego set and did it with your daughter. Yeah. And the money that it took versus the joy I saw from you being able to have this wonderful time with your daughter putting these Legos together. Like, this isn't like going to, you showed a picture of us in Jordan there on the screen earlier. You showed a picture of us in Egypt. That's not going to Jordan or Egypt. This is at home with my daughter. And this is one of the things you will remember forever. I'm just a friend of yours and I remember that. Like, that's how cool. Powerful this can be.
That's cool. We actually we're working right now on one of the Lord of the Rings projects. What's interesting is now she's almost 15. In fact, she'll be 15 when this goes live. And now I have to beg her to play with me. So I'm glad that all those years when she was like, Dad, can we? I always said yes. It was never, I've got to finish this email. Like, never. I knew that this would be fleeting and that she's going to go to bed and I can do the email later. It's just not as important. So we have the Eiffel Tower at home. It's 10,000 pieces.
Oh,
we have
sweet.
We have the Titanic. The Eiffel Tower is almost floor to ceiling. We have the Titanic. We have the Home Alone house, complete with the tree house in the back. Like, it's just very cool. And, people say, where are you going to put these? And I'm like, well, at the moment we have a museum. And, Rivendell is next. And
Rivendell, really?
The Rivendell. And by the time this goes live, she will know that one of her Christmas presents is actually the set from Wicked. It is that there's a Lego set from Wicked, which we did go see, and she just got cast as Glinda in one of the local area high schools plays in The Wizard of Oz. So Wicked was a big win. Her birthday party involved the Wicked movie. Like, it's just, these are great. And I think projects like that with your kids are really, for me, it was really important. It's not screen time. I mean, there's plenty of screen time, God knows, but it's building something. It's spending time together. It's and that's the stuff that matters. As far as I'm concerned, that's my happiest 15, 20 minutes in the day, quite candidly. So, I gotta ask you,
it's the same reason I like board games, by the way. Board games are not about the game. It's about you and I across the table. Instead of us staring at a screen and not talking, we're laughing about what you did, about what I did. You're going, damn it, Joe, which, by the way, in our game nights, damn it, Joe means fine play, my friend, right? when you're upset with the person across the table. And it's just these shared experiences that I don't think we get enough of.
I want you to know that I considered myself a pretty decent board game player. I spent the first 4+ decades of my life having never lost at Monopoly. Never. I won every time. People got really angry. It's one of those things where grandma throws the board and pieces go flying. Yeah. But I played with one of my close friends, his daughter, when she was in high school, had challenged me to play, and she beat me. And I mean, soundly. And she wore that like there was a trophy at their house. She was like 16, 17 years old. She's now graduating from RIT and is brilliant, by the way. Wow. So I don't feel as bad as I did when she was a teenager who stomped me at the game where I thought I was invincible. Joe, we could talk all day. We're running out of time. I got to keep this show 2 things: 1, on time, and 2, PG. And you've done that. So I appreciate you for that one. I got to ask you one last question. And I feel like this answer, no pressure, but this has to be a good one. It's the kickoff for season 6. And that's, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, I want to be Rick Steves. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be an advocate for marijuana, which I didn't know until like a year ago how big of a pot advocate that guy is. But this guy that gets to travel and have fun and live his best life. And whenever he's interviewed, just the joy around what he does, and he'd rather be doing nothing than that. So not just the travel aspect, but I always try to remind myself to be Rick Steves in my daily existence. Like looking at my calendar, is this the most fun thing I could be doing? Now, don't get me wrong. For a lot of us, it can't be all fun all the time. We have to pay the bills. And sometimes the most boring work is the work that really pays. But is it building this life? And man, when I see Rick Steves and what he does, people don't know who Rick Steves is. He's a big travel guy, big nerdy travel dude. There he is for people watching the video. He's super fun to watch and listen to. And I love his shows on Amazon Prime. I think if you've got Amazon Prime, you can watch Rick Steves. So if I could be Rick Steves or Eric Brotman, if I could be Eric Brotman.
Well, don't be me when you grow up. Be Rick. It sounds like he's having more fun, although we did just lose our PG rating. So thanks for that. So
I said crap.
So I know. So no, it wasn't that. So before we went on air, I want you to know that I want the audience to know that I compared you to Mac Davis. Mac Davis was a country singer in the 70s, and he sang a song called Hard to Be Humble, because he got better looking each day. And I just thought that Mac Davis that's who I thought you should be when you grow up. There he is with a full head of hair, just like yours.
Why are you comparing me to Mac Davis? I've wondered that since we got on.
Because you get better looking each day. I mean, it's a song lyric, Joe. What can I tell you? This has been fun.
Hilarious. We do have eye structure that's kind of similar.
We should do this again for season 12. Thank you so much for being on. Where can folks find out more about Stacked, more about Stacking Benjamin, Stacking Adventures, and all the stuff that you're up to?
Yeah, let's just go right to Stacking Benjamins, because as this comes out, we had our most wild episode, one that broke the mold for what we do. Our January 1st episode and January 3rd episodes, part 1 and part 2, are how to make $100 million in 2025 from a guy who's done it. His name is Alex Hormozi, and we have a 2-part interview. I actually went out to Las Vegas and interviewed this money-making machine of a man, and the interview was so dense that I came back, and OG and we don't have our normal format where it's a variety show. We take this interview and we just cut it up and we play a little bit of it and we pause and we say, okay, how do you implement this? What do you do? And then the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. So January 1st and 3rd, Alex Hormozi episodes. Go listen to those if you want to increase your income in 2025.
That's exciting. Although I don't think you should limit yourself to 100 million this year. I think you should really push it. Personally.
It's a good start. You just can't live on it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can. I mean, it's a good January. So, Joe, thanks for being on. It's always a pleasure. I've enjoyed my time in your basement on your show. It's great stuff. And I know I'll be seeing you throughout the year at conferences and different things. But I thank you for being the premier guest in season 6 for us.
Happy New Year, my friend. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank all of you for listening and watching today. If you enjoy our show, please subscribe, leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform, and share it with your friends so they can join you on your journey to financial freedom. If you'd like to send us a topic or idea you'd like to discuss in a future episode of Don't Retire, Graduate, please post it on our Facebook page or tweet us at Brotman Planning. We'll be back next week with our first entry of Diary of a Financial Advisor, and in 2 weeks with another engaging guest. For now, this is your host, and yes, valedictorian, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS. An affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Brotman Financial or any other entity discussed.
The Jim Stroud Podcast explores the discoveries and trends forming the future of our lives. Brain-to-brain communication, robot bosses, microchip implants for workers, and artificial intelligence replacing human workers are all happening now. If you want to know what's happening next, subscribe now to the Jim Stroud Podcast.